If you watch the news even casually, you know the sorts of things that corporations get up to, the different sorts of abuses, corruption, things of that sort, influencing our politics in ways that most people probably wouldn't think are fair. Thankfully, there are nonprofits out there watching what these corporations are getting up to. Unfortunately, even those nonprofits are not immune from the abuses of the corporations. A group called the Essential Information Group has released a report called Spooky Business, where they investigated the various ways that professional spies are working with corporations to investigate and infiltrate those nonprofits. And we're not talking about, someone who looked into the CIA a little bit while they were in college. No, we're talking about CIA employees, FBI employees, NSA employees working with some of the biggest corporations.
Former employees.
Former employees, yes. Not while they're on the job, but they know what they're doing. They're highly skilled. Working with corporations like Walmart, Monsanto, Coca Cola, Burger King, McDonald's, Kraft, Shell, BP, and others. And by the way, this is for the most part going on in America, where they are sending in moles to these groups to record what they're doing. They have surveillance vans circling the meetings as they're going on. It's happening in the US. It's also happening in France, the UK, and India. And in those international contexts, we're talking about the US Chamber of Commerce, Dow Chemical, Bank of America, other corporations spying on nonprofits internationally.
You know, when I was at Occupy Wall Street, we covered it for a week for the Young Turks, and I would go to some of the organizing meetings to see how that was going down. It was a fascinating process. And big rooms, they'd be like, I don't know, about 60, 70 people in the room, in the organizing room. And I would always play the game of spot the spy. Because it's inconceivable that that group was not infiltrated either by the NYPD, the FBI, or JP Morgan, or all of the above, right? And so now you find out through this new report that, of course, that they do this on basically an industrial scale. So any group that, if they're a defense contractor, they might infiltrate the anti-war groups. If they are, looking to protect animals, et cetera, the environment, Monsanto might infiltrate them. You're looking to protect workers, man, you're going to get littered with infiltration, right?
I like the idea that maybe a Walmart spy would stumble into a JP Morgan Chase spy and they wouldn't know.
Oh, yeah. And then they take each other out.
Right. They're reporting on the other one because they're both trying to make each other seem more extreme to get more information. They just keep, it's getting out of control. This one guy wants to overthrow the whole government, but it turns out it's just the JP Morgan spy.
You see, that's okay because they're not trying to arrest each other. They're trying to generate more business for themselves. Because remember, these guys are all contractors selling to Dow Chemical, selling to Walmart, selling to JP Morgan Chase. The more they can exaggerate the problem, the more business they get. And by the way, there's a great companion report to this. I think it's from the Center for Media and Democracy, talking about how they use Freedom of Information Act to get a bunch of documents on Arizona Homeland Security Fusion Center and how they were able to use government espionage resources to work with JP Morgan Chase's in-house security, government forces and JP Morgan Chase in-house security to protect Jamie Dimon from running into demonstrators when he went to Phoenix on a business trip. So it's really a corrupt system.
Now, speaking of JP Morgan, we're picking on them a little bit too much. In this story, at least as far as we know, Bank of America was mentioned, but not JP Morgan. But we do know from other stories, for example, again, back to Occupy Wall Street, that it turns out in downtown New York, they have a command and control system where they monitor the video cameras throughout the area. And it is run equally by the NYPD and the top banks, JP Morgan, Bank of America, Goldman Sachs, et cetera. So when the state and business merge like that, I believe there's a word for it.
Yeah.
Okay, I believe there's a word for it.
Mary Landro.
Right.
Yes, I think Mary Landro knows the word.
Right, and we, of course, that's a reference to a story we just did about how the conservatives are calling Mary Landrieu a Democrat and fascist because of the filibuster vote, which is hilarious, right? When in fact, look at this story, right? Now we've got ex-government guys like CIA, NSA guys now that are private corporations working with other private corporations to infiltrate nonprofit groups. And so where the state leaves and private corporations begin, now no one knows.
And in New York, the police force were also being hired in their off hours, and directly the city was being paid for the use of New York City police by the top Wall Street banks. So they were using the police as a private security force at the same time as they were the police force of the elected government in New York City.
And Ray Kelly, the NYPD police commissioner, leaves, and where does he go? Gets $1 million job at a bank.